Well, one reason is that there are developmental disorders that seem to involve damage to one system but not to another. And the classic case of this is a disorder known as autism. And autism is something I've always found a fascinating disorder for many reasons. It's actually why I entered psychology. I started off working with children with autism. And it could be taken as a striking illustration of how the social part of your brain is distinct from other parts of your brain. So what autism is a disorder that strikes about 1 in 1,000 people, mostly boys. And the dominant problems consist of a lack of social connectedness, problems with language, problems dealing with people, and more generally, problems with what the psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen has described as mind blindness. In that autistic people show no impairments dealing with the physical world. They show no impairments on, they don't necessarily show any impairments on mathematical skills or spatial skills, but they have a lot of problems with people. Now, many autistic children have no language, they're totally shut off from society, but even some of them who learn language and who manage to get some sort of independent life, nevertheless, will suffer from a severe social impairment. And this could be shown in all sorts of ways. A simple experiment developed by Simon Baron-Cohen goes like this. You show this to 3- and 4-year-olds. There's 4 candies there, and you say, this is Charlie in the middle. Which chocolate will Charlie take? For most children, and most of you, I hope, the answer is pretty clear, this one. Autistic children will often just shrug, say, how could I know? Because they don't instinctively appreciate that people's interests and desires tend to be attuned to where they're looking. Another sort of task, which is a task that's been done hundreds, perhaps thousands of times, is known as the false belief task. And here's the idea. You show the child the following situation. There's a doll named Maxie, and Maxie puts the ball in the cupboard. Maxie leaves, and a second doll enters. The second doll takes the ball out of the cupboard and puts it under the bed. Maxie comes back, and the question is, where will Maxie look for the ball? Now, this is a question about your understanding about minds. The question of where is the ball really is a question about the physical world. Everyone can solve it. But this question is hard. The right answer is Maxie will look in the cupboard, even though it's not really there. Because Maxie has a false belief about the world. 3-year-olds find this difficult. 2-year-olds find this difficult. 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds are able to pass this task. Normal adults are able to pass this task. Children with autism have serious problems. And often people with autism who are otherwise very high functioning will fail this task. They'll say, oh, he must think it's on, he's going to check under the bed. Any questions about autism? Yes?
How is that example with the ball moving from the cupboard to the bed different from what we watched with the Katie and John walking through the flower?
Good question. It isn't. They're both experiments designed to tap an appreciation of false belief. The deception one, with the shoes and everything, looked at it in the course of deception. Can you understand that a mother might think it's that person, even though it's really that person? And our kid failed. This is a sort of stripped down version without all the fanciness, but it tests exactly the same thing. Yes?
Why is it that autism strikes mainly males?
Nobody knows, but there's a theory which won't answer your question, but we'll put it in a broader context. Simon Baron-Cohen argues that there's certain abilities that tend to be more sequestered for males and other abilities that are more sequestered, more focused on females. Social abilities, he argues, tend to be more female than male. So the way Baron puts it provocatively is to be a man is to suffer from a very mild form of autism. The idea is then that autistic individuals suffer from what he calls extreme male brains. And as such, it stands to reason that they'd be more sampled from the male population than the female population. That's such an interesting issue that, again, when we return to talk about sex differences, we'll look at that in a little bit more detail to see if it's supported by the evidence. Yes?
Does the severity of autism, depending on how bad is that mean that the person is not necessarily development?
I'm sorry, tell me, is the severity of autism?
Does it mean that they'll stop at different stages of development, or is it always they stop at one exact stage?
It's an interesting question. The question is, how do you think about the severity of autism with regard to developmental stages? And sort of surprisingly, autism can't really be thought of in that way. So it's not like an adult with autism is like a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old. In some ways, somebody with autism isn't like any child at all, any normally developing child at all. So it's not really a developmental delay in the way that it might make sense to think about certain forms of retardation. On the other hand, when we think about how severe autism is, we do look at things like how much language does a person have. And in that sense, it is related to development. Yes?
What are the chances that someone who's autistic will be able to overcompensate for the deficiencies?
The majority of people with autism, it's a good question. The question is, what are the chances somebody with autism will be able to overcome their deficiencies? Autism is a funny disorder in that there's a lot of media publication and media presentation. Often the people who are showcased in the media tend to be very exceptional. So there's a woman, Temple Grandin, who's autistic. And has anybody here heard of Temple Grandin? She wrote some wonderful books about her experience as an autistic person, but she's very unusual. So a lot depends, to answer your question, how one defines autism and whether one includes Asperger's syndrome, which is a more mild syndrome as a form of autism. The answer is that the majority of people with autism have severe problems and will not, and at this stage, with this level of therapy, will not lead a normal life.
Just more specifically, what I meant was when you showed the example of Rain Man.
Yep.
Is it that most people who have autism, are they exceptional at math and analytical skills, or are they just better
Right.
relative to
The question is about so-called autistic savants. So Rain Man, the character played by Dustin Hoffman, had extraordinary mathematical abilities. And some people with autism have extraordinary artistic abilities or mathematical abilities or musical abilities. And these are amazing. It's an amazing question why they have it. But this is a very small minority. It's fascinating that it happens at all, that you can have severe damage, but compensated with some powerful skill. Now I know I'm answering your question, I think, in a better way. But it's actually very rare. Most people with autism do not have any exceptional abilities that go along with it.